Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're tackling a deeply complex and honestly pretty sobering topic. When you look closely at the political history of Pakistan, you quickly realize it's been profoundly shaped by this tragic, compounding cycle of high-profile assassinations. I mean, literally from its very founding right up to the modern day, the nation's political landscape has been repeatedly shattered by the sudden, violent losses of its top leaders. So let's unpack exactly how this grim timeline unfolded.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really grasp this complex history, we're going to follow a chronological roadmap. 1. Early tragedies and mysteries. 2. The Bhutto and Zia eras. 3. The 1990s, violence intensifies. 4. 2000s, insurgency and Benazir's fall. And finally, 5. Modern targets and recent attempts.
Section 1. Early tragedies and mysteries. Just look at this early timeline. You can see how incredibly fast the country lost its initial leadership. In 1948, the founder, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, passed away. Just 3 years later, in 1951, the very first prime minister, Liaquat Ali Khan, was outright assassinated. Then, by 1963, a former prime minister, Hussein Shahid Suhrawardy, died in a Beirut hotel room, a death, by the way, that his daughter firmly believed was not natural. And in 1967, Jinnah's sister Fatima Jinnah passed away. The question on everyone's mind was, why? Deep public suspicions of foul play surrounded almost all of these early departures.
Let's zoom in on the tragic, step-by-step breakdown of Muhammad Ali Jinnah's final day. He actually kept his severe tuberculosis a heavily guarded secret to protect the political movement, but as his health rapidly deteriorated in Ziyarat, he was rushed back to Karachi. And here's where it gets crazy. On the way from the air base, his military ambulance broke down. It literally just broke down. He was left completely stranded, waiting for a rescue, and passed away that very night. The shockingly poor medical arrangements led a lot of circles at the time to suspect a deliberate, behind-the-scenes conspiracy.
And this right here brilliantly illustrates the eerie, repeating patterns in this history. On the left, we have the first prime minister, Liaquat Ali Khan, who was shot in 1951 at Company Bog and Rawalpindi. On the right, 56 years later, first female prime minister Benazir Bhutto was murdered at that exact same park. To make matters even more mysterious regarding the 1951 assassination, the chief investigator for Liaquat's case, IG Atizadin Dayo, died mysteriously in a plane crash along with crucial case documents. It left the nation in a crisis it has arguably never fully recovered from.
The tragedies unfortunately didn't stop there. Fatima Jinnah, a crucial leader in the Pakistan movement, bravely ran in an election against military ruler Ayub Khan. After she lost, she faced severe state pressure before suddenly dying in 1967. Now, while doctors officially cited a heart attack, it's really important to note that prominent figures, including her own nephew, the legal expert Akbar Pirbhai, strongly suspected foul play. The exact truth? It remains obscured by history.
Section 2. The Bhutto and Zia eras. Moving into the 70s and 80s, we hit this incredibly bloody timeline. We're seeing a rapid succession of deaths among the country's absolute highest power players. From the execution of a prime minister in 1979, to mysterious deaths in France, a shocking mid-air explosion in 1988, to a deadly police encounter in 1996, the turnover of leadership during this period was just inherently violent.
Now, you might have heard the term judicial murder. While Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's own time and power saw mysterious deaths of political figures, like Nawab Muhammad Ahmed Khan Kasori, his own end was totally unprecedented. On April 4, 1979, under military dictator Zia-ul-Haq, Bhutto was hanged. This event is widely regarded globally as a judicial murder, basically a legal execution designed specifically to eliminate a powerful political rival.
But Zia-ul-Haq himself met a sudden, shocking end. On August 17, 1988, his C-130 plane crashed right after takeoff. 0 survivors. Many people openly label this a targeted assassination rather than a mere accident. And amidst this huge overarching power struggle, the Bhutto family suffered immense personal loss too. Zulfikar's youngest son, Shahnawaz, was found mysteriously dead in France in 1985, allegedly poisoned. Then, a decade later in 1996, his older son, Murtaza, was killed in a controversial police encounter right outside his own home in Karachi.
Section 3. The 1990s. Violence intensifies.
As we hit the 90s, the locus of violence really starts to shift away from federal offices and deeply into major urban centers like Karachi. This era was incredibly volatile. Political, religious, and social leaders were just being routinely gunned down. For instance, MQM chairman Azim Ahmed Karak was killed in his sleep in 1993. It was an era where the bullet was aggressively competing with the ballot.
So the absolutely crucial point here is how destabilizing these individual acts of violence were to the entire state. Take the murder of Hakim Mohammed Saeed. Here was a 78-year-old revered social leader and former governor. He was brutally murdered outside his clinic in 1998. And this didn't just end a life. The political shockwave was so massive that the entire Sindh provincial government was essentially toppled, and governor's rule was imposed. While MQM affiliates were initially blamed by authorities, it's very important to note they were fully acquitted of these charges years later in 2014.
Section 4. 2000s. Insurgency and Benazir's fall.
43. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the staggering number of bullets that hit religious leader Azam Tariq in 2003. And this didn't happen out in some remote area. His car was targeted in broad daylight as it entered the capital city of Islamabad. It absolutely highlights the sheer brazenness and ferocity of the attacks during this terrifying period of rising insurgency.
And the scale of the violence? It was expanding rapidly. Over 150 people were killed in October 2007 during the welcome procession blast for Benazir Bhutto when she finally returned from exile. We're seeing a horrific shift here, where violence was indiscriminately claiming massive numbers of civilian lives alongside these political targets. I mean, just the year prior, in 2006, prominent Baluch leader Akbar Bukti was killed during a military operation, igniting intense unrest. And 60 people were killed in a devastating bombing at Nishtar Park in Karachi, wiping out an entire tier of religious leadership in a single strike.
Which brings us to the absolute climax of this violent era. On December 27, 2007, just months after surviving that procession blast, former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto was assassinated through a combined gun and suicide bomb attack. Now, while the government officially blamed Beytullah Masood and al-Qaeda, intense public suspicions pointed in multiple directions. The lack of immediate clarity, combined with the sheer loss of such a monumental figure, plunged the entire nation into days of violent, burning riots.
Section 5. Modern targets and recent attempts.
He had really hoped that by the 2010s and 2020s, this dark pattern would fade, right? Well, the source material shows it continues relentlessly. Walking through this modern timeline, we see violence still stretching across boundaries. In 2010, politician Imran Farooq was stabbed to death, notably in London. This is actually one of the rare cases where the killers faced justice, receiving life sentences a decade later. But inside Pakistan, the assassinations just kept coming, claiming secular governors, religious clerics, and eventually targeting another prime minister.
The religious and political volatility of the modern era is starkly captured by this next event. In 2011, Punjab Governor Salman Taseer was murdered by his own bodyguard. The motive? Taseer had publicly criticized the country's blasphemy laws, calling them a black law. It shows how words alone, literally just a political stance, could make a leader an immediate target. This terrifying trend continued with the mysterious murder of prominent religious figure Maulana Sami-ul-Haq, who was shockingly stabbed and shot inside his own home in Islamabad in 2018.
Which literally brings our timeline right up to the present day. On November 3, 2022, former Prime Minister Imran Khan survived an assassination attempt. During a political march in Wazirabad, gunfire erupted, and Khan survived a gunshot wound to the leg. He joins a perilous list of leaders who have narrowly survived, reminding all of us that this is a long, unbroken chain of violence shaping current reality.
So, what does this all mean? We've just traced a timeline from 1948 all the way to 2022. From Jinnah to Imran Khan, the shadow of violence has never really left the political arena. It leaves us with a vital, profound question to consider. Will this cycle of blood ever stop? Will a culture of dialogue ever truly replace the culture of violence in determining the nation's future? It's a heavy question, but one that the massive toll of this history demands we reflect upon. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this chronological look helped make sense of a truly complex history.